apologize. I'm running a little behind getting all the visuals and stuff ready. It's been a crazy couple of days. There we go. Hope everybody's doing all right. Hope we are all ready for an evening with a master storyteller, Mr. Ray Bradbury. If you are familiar with the work of Ray Bradbury, tell me what your favorite Bradbury story is. I'd love to know. He was one of the great storytellers of the 20th century. You will never convince me otherwise. Martian Chronicles is one that I have read probably, gosh, I can't even tell you. I mean, at least 4 or 5 times. Fahrenheit 451 is, of course, a classic. Something Wicked This Way Comes is another one that I thoroughly enjoy. He is mostly known for his science fiction stories. Yes, Illustrated Man is fantastic. Oh, did you? What was he like? Please tell me. I need to know. I am a big fan. Oh, that's wonderful. It's always cool when somebody like that turns out to be actually like, you know, a decent human being. Alrighty then. Well, for those of you that are new here, my name is Jeremy. I go by Undead Papa on most social media. I am a storyteller. Well, that's what I like to do. I am a professional voice actor and audiobook narrator, and I love telling stories, so that's what I do here. These are all messed up. I should have taken a look at this earlier. Well, that's unfortunate. We're just going to have to do this the hard way. No, I have not. OBS Studio is one of the two programs that I use. I use TikTok Live Studio, plus I do use OBS because I'm actually streaming on both TikTok and YouTube. But I love TikTok, and we love the TikTok shop. Do you hear that, TikTok? Anyway, we won't get too far into the weeds here. Well, thank you. I appreciate that you appreciate it, and I mean that sincerely. I'm not trying to be facetious. This is something that I greatly enjoy doing, and the community of people that I have built has been wonderful. Turn that down a little bit. It's a little too bright. Okay. Well, there are 75 people in the room, so I think we are safe enough to get started. I do remember Ray Bradbury Theater. Boy, that's a deep cut, man. That's definitely a deep pull. Let's see. Get my book going here. It's been a bit of a crazy week, so yeah, I'm gonna turn that down here. There we go. Yes, I Sing the Body Electric. That's a fantastic story of his, and based on a Walt Whitman poem. Okay. Let's get my stories ready, and then we'll start. We will start reading. All right. So tonight we are going to spend some time with one of the great architects of imagination, a writer who could make Mars feel closer than it actually is, childhood feel haunted, and autumn feel eternal. Most people that are familiar with Ray Bradbury are familiar with The Martian Chronicles and tales of science fiction and distant worlds, tales of wonder, nostalgia, and the quiet magic of memory. But tonight, we are going to go somewhere else. Because Bradbury also had a remarkable talent for something darker. Stories that slip quietly under the skin. Stories where the familiar becomes unsettling and where ordinary life turns just a little bit wrong. So tonight we're opening the door to 4 of these darker tales. Four stories where technology, curiosity, childhood, and even celebration lead us somewhere we probably didn't want to go. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin our evening with Ray Bradbury. Our first story is called The Veldt. George, I wish you'd look at the nursery. What's wrong with it? I don't know. Well, then, I just want you to look at it as all, or call a psychologist in to look at it. What would a psychologist want with a nursery? You know very well what he'd want. His wife paused in the middle of the kitchen and watched the stove busy, humming it to itself, making supper for 4. It's just that the nursery is different now than it was. All right, let's have a look. They walked down the hall of their soundproofed Happy Life home, which had cost them $30,000 installed. This house, which clothed and fed and rocked them to sleep and played and sang and was good to them. Their approach sensitized a switch somewhere, and the nursery light flicked on when they came within 10 feet of it. Similarly, behind them in the halls, lights went on and off as they left them behind, with a soft automaticity. Well, said George Hadley. They stood on the thatched floor of the nursery. It was 40 feet across by 40 feet long and 30 feet high. It had cost half again as much as the rest of the house, but nothing's too good for our children, George had said. The nursery was silent. It was empty as a jungle glade at hot noon. High noon. The walls were blank and two-dimensional. Now, as George and Lydia Hadley stood in the center of the room, the walls began to purr and recede into crystalline distance, it seemed, and presently an African veldt appeared. In 3 dimensions on all sides, in color reproduced to the final pebble and bit of straw. The ceiling above them became a deep sky with a hot yellow sun. George Hadley felt the perspiration start on his brow. Let's get out of this sun, he said. This is a little too real, but I don't see anything wrong. Wait a moment, you'll see, said his wife. Now the hidden odorophonics were beginning to blow a wind of odor at the 2 people in the middle of the baked Veltland. The hot straw smell of lion grass, the cool green smell of the hidden waterhole, the great rusty smell of animals, the smell of dust like a red paprika in the hot air. And now the sounds. The thump of a distant antelope felt feet on greasy sod, the papery rustle of vultures. A shadow passed through the sky. The shadow flickered on George Hadley's upturned, sweating face. Filthy creatures, he heard his wife say. The vultures. You see, there are the lions, far over that way. Now they're on their way to the waterhole. They've just been eating, said Lydia. I don't know what. Some animal. George Hadley put his hand up to shield off the burning light from his squinted eyes. A zebra or baby giraffe, maybe. Are you sure? His wife sounded peculiarly tense. Wow, that's a tough word, peculiarly. No, it's a It's a little late, to be sure, he said, amused. Nothing over there I can see but cleaned bone, and the vultures dropping for what's left. Did you hear that scream? She asked. No. About a minute ago? Sorry, no. The lions were coming, and again George Hadley was filled with admiration for the mechanical genius who had conceived this room. A miracle of efficiency, selling for an absurdly low price. Every home should have one. Oh, occasionally they frightened you with their clinical accuracy. They startled you, gave you a twinge, but most of the time, what fun for everyone. Not only your own son and daughter, but for yourself when you felt like a quick jaunt to a foreign land, a quick change of scenery. Well, here it was. And here were the lions now, 15 feet away, so real, so feverishly and startlingly real that you could feel the prickling fur on your hand, and your mouth was stuffed with the dusty upholstery smell of their heated pelts, and the yellow of them was in your eyes like the yellow of an exquisite French tapestry, the yellows of lions and summer grass, and the sound of the matted lion lungs exhaling on the silent noontide, and the smell of meat from the panting, dripping mouths. The lions stood looking at George and Lydia Hadley with terrible green-yellow eyes. "Watch out!" screamed Lydia. The lions came running at them. Lydia bolted and ran. Instinctively, George sprang after her. Outside in the hall with the door slammed, he was laughing and she was crying, and they both stood, appalled at the other's reaction. "George!" "Lydia! Oh, my dear, poor, sweet Lydia! They almost got us!" "Walls, Lydia, remember, crystal walls, that's all they are. Oh, they look real, I must admit, Africa in your parlor, but it's all dimensional, super-reactionary. Super-sensitive color film and mental tape film behind glass screens. It's all odorophonics and sonics, Lydia. Here's my handkerchief." "I'm afraid." She came to him and put her body against him and cried steadily. "Did you see? Did you feel? It's too real. Now, Lydia, you've got to tell Wendy and Peter not to read any more on Africa." Of course, he patted her. "Promise?" "Sure. And lock the nursery for a few days until I get my nerves settled." "You know how difficult Peter is about that. When I punished him a month ago by locking the nursery for even a few hours, the tantrum he threw. And Wendy, too. They live for the nursery." "It's got to be locked. That's all there is to it." "All right." Reluctantly, he locked the huge door. "You've been working too hard. You need a rest." I don't know, she said, blowing her nose, sitting down in a chair that immediately began to rock and comfort her. "Maybe I don't have enough to do. Maybe I have time to think too much. Why don't we shut the whole house off for a few days and take a vacation?" "You mean you want to fry my eggs for me?" "Yes," she nodded. "And darn my socks." "Yes," a frantic, watery-eyed nodding. "And sweep the house?" Yes, oh, yes. But I thought that's why we bought this house, so we wouldn't have to do anything." "Well, that's just it. I feel like I don't belong here. The house is wife and mother now, and nursemaid. I can't compete with an African veldt. Can I give a bath and scrub the children as efficiently or quickly as the automatic scrub bath can? I cannot. And it isn't just me, it's you. You've been awfully nervous lately." "Hey, Tessa. Welcome in." "You look as if you didn't know what to do with yourself in this house either. You smoke a little more every morning, drink a little more every afternoon. and need a little more sedative every night. You're beginning to feel unnecessary, too." "Am I?" He paused and tried to feel into himself to see what was really there. "Oh, George," she looked beyond him at the nursery door. "Those lions can't get out of there, can they?" He looked at the door and saw it tremble as if something had jumped against it from the other side. "Well, of course not," he said. At dinner they ate alone, for Wendy and Peter were at a special plastic carnival across town and had televised home to say they'd be late to go ahead eating. So George Hadley, bemused, sat watching the dining room table produce warm dishes of food from its mechanical interior. "We forgot the ketchup," he said. "Sorry," said a small voice within the table, and ketchup appeared. As for the nursery, thought George Hadley, it won't hurt for the children to be locked out of it for a while. Too much of anything isn't good for anyone, and it was clearly indicated that the children had been spending a little too much time in Africa. That sun, he could feel it on his neck, still like a hot paw, and the lions, and the smell of blood. Remarkable how the nursery caught the telepathic emanations of the children's mind and created life to fill their every desire. The children thought lions, and there were lions. The children thought zebras, and there were zebras. Sun, sun, giraffes, giraffes, death, and death. That last. He chewed tastelessly on the meat that the table had cut for him. Death thoughts. They were awfully young, Wendy and Peter, for death thoughts. Or, no, you were never too young, really. Long before you knew what death was, you were wishing it on someone. When you were 2 years old, you were shooting people with cap pistols. But this, the long, hot African veldt, the awful death in the jaws of a lion, and repeated again and again. "Where are you going?" He didn't answer Lydia. Preoccupied, he let the thoughts glow softly on ahead of him, extinguish behind him as he padded to the nursery door. He listened against it. Far away, a lion roared. He unlocked the door and opened it. Just before he stepped inside, he heard a faraway scream and another roar from the lions, which subsided quickly. He stepped into Africa. How many times in the last year had he opened this door and found Wonderland, Alice, the Mock Turtle, or Aladdin and his magic lamp, or Jack Pumpkinhead of Oz, or Dr. Dolittle, or the cow jumping over a very real-appearing moon? All the delightful contraptions of a make-believe world. How often had he seen Pegasus flying in the sky ceiling, or seen fountains of red fireworks, or heard angel voices singing? But now... Wow, you guys just watch my brain buffer in real time. But now this yellow, hot Africa, this bake oven with murder in the heat. Perhaps Lydia was right. Perhaps they needed a little vacation from the fantasy which was growing a bit too real for 10-year-old children. It was all right to exercise one's mind with gymnastic fantasies, but when the lively child mind settled on one pattern, it seemed that at a distance, for the past month, he had heard lions roaring and smelled their strong odor seeping as far away as his study door. But being busy, he had paid no attention to it. George Hadley stood on the African grassland alone. The lions looked up from their feeding, watching him. The only flaw in the illusion was the open door through which he could see his wife, far down the dark hall like a framed picture, eating her dinner abstractedly. "Go away," he said to the lions. They did not go. He knew the principle of the room exactly. You sent out your thoughts. Whatever you thought would appear. "Let's have Aladdin and his lamp," he snapped. The Veltland remained. The lions remained. "Oh, come on, room. I demand Aladdin," he said. Nothing happened. The lions mumbled in their baked pelts. "Aladdin!" He went back to dinner. "The full room's out of order," he said. "It won't respond, or what?" "Or it can't respond," said Lydia, "because the children have thought about Africa and lions and killing so many days that the room's in a rut." "It could be. Or Peter set it to remain that way." "Set it? He may have got into the machinery and fixed something." "Peter doesn't know machinery." "He's a wise one for 10. That IQ of his, nevertheless." "Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad." The Hadleys turned. Wendy and Peter were coming in the front door, cheeks like peppermint candy, eyes like bright blue agate marbles, a smell of ozone on their jumpers from their trip in the helicopter. "You're just in time for supper," said both parents. "We're full of strawberry ice cream and hot dogs," said the children, holding hands. "But we'll sit and watch." "Yes, come tell us about the nursery," said George Hadley. The brother and sister blinked at him and then at each other. "Nursery?" "All about Africa and everything," said the father with false joviality. "I don't understand," said Peter. "Your mother and I were just traveling through Africa with a rod and reel, Tom Swift and his electric lion," said George Hadley. "There's no Africa in the nursery," said Peter simply. "Oh, come now, Peter, we know better." "I don't remember any Africa," said Peter to Wendy. "Do you?" "No." "Run see and come tell." She obeyed. "Wendy, come back here," said George Hadley, but she was gone. The house lights followed her like a flock of fireflies. Too late, he realized he had forgotten to lock the nursery door after his last inspection. "Wendy'll look and come and tell us," said Peter. "She doesn't have to tell me. I've seen it." "I'm sure you're mistaken, Father." "I'm not, Peter. Come along now." But Wendy was back. "It's not Africa," she said breathlessly. "We'll see about this," said George Hadley, and they walked down the hall together and opened the nursery door. There was a green, lovely forest, a lovely river, a purple mountain, high voices singing, and Rima, lovely and mysterious, lurking in the trees with colorful flights of butterflies like animated bouquets, lingering in her long hair. The African Veltland was gone. The lions were gone. Only Rima was there now, singing a song so beautiful that it brought tears to your eyes. George Hadley looked in at the changed scene. "Go to bed," he said to the children. They opened their mouths. "You heard me," he said. They went off to the air closet, where a wind sucked them like brown leaves up the flue to their slumber rooms. George Hadley walked through the singing glade and picked up something that had lay in the corner near where the lions had been. He walked slowly back to his wife. "What's that?" she asked. "An old wallet of mine," he said. He showed it to her. The smell of hot grass was on it, and the smell of lion. There were drops of saliva on it. It had been chewed. There were blood smears on both sides. He closed the nursery door and locked it tight. In the middle of the night he was still awake, and he knew his wife was awake. Do you think Wendy changed it? She said, at last, in the dark room. Of course. Made it from a veldt into a forest and put Rima in there instead of lions? Yes. Why? I don't know, but it's staying locked until I find out. How did your wallet get there? I don't know anything, he said, except that I'm beginning to be sorry we bought that room for the children. If children are neurotic at all, a room like that... It's supposed to help them work off their neurosis in a healthful way. I'm starting to wonder. He stared at the ceiling. We've given the children everything they ever wanted. This is our reward. Secrecy, disobedience. Who was it said children are carpets they should be stepped on occasionally? We've never lifted a hand. They're insufferable, let's admit it. They've come and go when they like. They treat us as if we are offspring. They're spoiled, and we're spoiled. They've been acting funny ever since you forbade them to take the rocket to New York a few months ago. They're not old enough to do that alone, I explained. Nevertheless, I've noticed they've been decidedly cool toward us since. I think I'll have David McLean come tomorrow to have a look at Africa. But it's not Africa now. It's Green Mansion's country in Rima. I have a feeling it'll be Africa again before then. A moment later, they heard the screams. 2 screams, 2 people screaming from downstairs, and then the roar of lions. Wendy and Peter aren't in their rooms, said his wife. He lay in his bed with his beating heart. No, he said, they've broken into the nursery. Those screams, they sound familiar. Do they? Yes, awfully. And although their beds tried very hard, the two adults couldn't be rocked to sleep for another hour. A smell of cats was in the night air. Father, said Peter. Yes? Peter looked at his shoes. He never looked at his father anymore, nor at his mother. You aren't going to lock up the nursery for good, are you? That all depends. On what? Snapped Peter. On you and your sister. If you intersperse this Africa with a little variety, Sweden, perhaps, or Denmark, or China. I thought we were free to play as we wished. You are, within reasonable bounds. What's wrong with Africa, Father? Oh, so now you admit you have been conjuring up Africa, do you? I wouldn't want the nursery locked up, said Peter coldly. Ever. Matter of fact, we're thinking of turning the whole house off for about a month. Live sort of a carefree, one-for-all existence. That sounds dreadful. Would I have to tie my own shoes instead of letting the shoe tire do it? And brush my own teeth and comb my hair and give myself a bath? It would be fun for a change, don't you think? No, it would be horrid. I didn't like it when you took the picture painter last month. That's because I wanted you to learn to paint all by yourself, son. I don't want to do anything but look and listen and smell. What else is there to do? All right, you go play in Africa. Will you shut off the house sometime soon? We're considering it. I don't think you'd better consider it any more, Father. I won't have any threats from my son. Very well, said Peter, and Peter strolled off to the nursery. Am I on time? Said David McLean. Breakfast? Asked George Hadley. Thanks, had some. What's the trouble? David, you're a psychologist. Well, I should hope so. Well, Then have a look at our nursery. You saw it a year ago when you dropped by. Did you notice anything peculiar about it, then? Can't say I did. The usual violences, a tendency toward a slight paranoia here or there. Usual in children because they feel persecuted by parents constantly, but, really nothing. They walked down the hall. I locked the nursery up, explained the father, and the children broke back into it during the night. I let them stay so they could form the patterns for you to see. There was a terrible screaming coming from the nursery. There it is, said George Hadley. See what you make of it. They walked in on the children without rapping. The screams had faded. The lions were feeding. Run outside a moment, children, said George Hadley. No, don't change the mental combination. Leave the walls as they are. Get. With the children gone, the two men stood studying the lions clustered at a distance, eating with great relish whatever it was they had caught. I wish I knew what it was, said George Hadley. Sometimes I can almost see. Do you think if I brought high-powered binoculars here and... David McLean laughed dryly. Hardly. He turned to study all four walls. How long has this been going on? A little over a month. It certainly doesn't feel good. I want facts, not feelings. My dear George, a psychologist never saw a fact in his life. He only hears about feelings, vague things. This doesn't feel good, I tell you. I trust my hunches and my instincts. I have a nose for something bad. This is very bad. My advice to you is to have the whole damn room torn down and your children brought to me every day during the next year for treatment. Is it that bad? I'm afraid so. One of the original uses of these nurseries was so that we could study the patterns left on the walls by the child's mind, study at our leisure, and help the child. In this case, however, the room has become a channel toward destructive thoughts instead of a release away from them. Didn't you sense this before? I sensed only that you had spoiled your children more than most, and now you're letting them down in some way. What way? I wouldn't let them go to New York. What else? I've taken a few machines from the house and threatened them a month ago with closing up the nursery unless they did their homework. I did close it for a few days to show I meant business. Aha! Does that mean anything? Everything. Where before they had a Santa Claus, now they have a Scrooge. Children prefer Santas. You've let this room and this house replace you and your wife and your children's affections. This room is their mother and father, far more important in their lives than their real parents, and now you come along and want to shut it off. No wonder there's hatred here. You can feel it coming out of the sky. Feel that, son? George, you'll have to change your life. Like too many others, you've built it around creature comforts. Why, you'd starve tomorrow if something went wrong in your kitchen. You wouldn't know how to tap an egg. Nevertheless, turn everything off. Start new. It'll take time, but we'll make good children out of bad in a year. Wait and see. But won't the shock be too much for the children, shutting the room up abruptly for good? I don't want them going any deeper into this, that's all. The lions were finished with their red feast. The lions were standing on the edge of the clearing, watching the two men. Now I'm feeling persecuted, said McLean. Let's get out of here. I never have cared for these damned rooms. Make me nervous. The lions look real, don't they? Said George Hadley. I don't suppose there's any way... What? That they could become real? Not that I know. Some flaw in the machinery, a tampering or something? No. They went to the door. I don't imagine the room will like being turned off, said the father. Nothing ever likes to die, even a room. I wonder if it hates me for wanting to switch it off. Well, paranoia is thick around here today, said David McLean. You can follow it like a spore. Hello. He bent and picked up a bloody scarf. This yours? No. George Hadley's face was rigid. It belongs to Lydia. They went to the fuse box together and threw the switch that killed the nursery. The two children were in hysterics. They screamed and pranced and threw things. They yelled and sobbed and swore and jumped at the furniture. You can't do that to the nursery. You can't. Now, children. The children flung themselves onto a couch, weeping. George, said Lydia Hadley, turn on the nursery just for a few moments. You can't be so abrupt. No, you can't be so cruel. Lydia, it's off, and it stays off, and the whole damn house dies as of here and now. The more I see of the mess we've put ourselves in, the more it sickens me. We've been contemplating our mechanical electronic navels for too long. My God, we need to breathe. We need a breath of honest air. And he marched about the house, turning off the voice clocks, the stoves, the heaters, the shoe shiners, the shoelacers, the body scrubbers and swabbers and massagers, and every other machine he could put his hand to. The house was full of dead bodies, it seemed. It felt like a mechanical cemetery, so silent. None of the humming, hidden energy of machines was waiting to function at the tap of a button. Don't let them do it, wailed Peter at the ceiling, as if he was talking to the house, the nursery. Don't let Father kill everything. He turned to his father. Oh, I hate you. Insults won't get you anywhere. I wish you were dead. We were for a long while. Now we're going to really start living. Instead of being handled and massaged, we're going to live. Wendy was still crying, and Peter joined her again. Just a moment, just one moment, just another moment of nursery, they wailed. Oh, George, said the wife, it can't hurt. All right, if they'll just shut up. 1 moment, mind you, and then off forever. Daddy, 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 sang the children, smiling with wet faces. And then we're going on a vacation. David McLean is coming back in half an hour to help us move out and get to the airport. I'm going to dress. You turn the nursery on for a minute, Lydia. Just a minute, mind you. And the three of them went babbling off while he let himself be vacuumed upstairs through the air flue and set about dressing himself. A minute later, Lydia appeared. I'll be glad when we get away, she sighed. Did you leave them in the nursery? I wanted to dress too. Oh, that horrid Africa. What can they see in it? Well, in 5 minutes we'll be on our way to Iowa. Lord, how did we ever get in this house? What prompted us to buy a nightmare? Pride, money, foolishness. I think we'd better get downstairs before those kids get engrossed with those damn beasts again. Just then they heard the children calling. Daddy, Mommy, come quick, quick! They went downstairs in the air flue and ran down the hall. The children were nowhere in sight. Wendy? Peter! They ran into the nursery. The Veltland was empty, save for the lions waiting, looking at them. Peter? Wendy? The door slammed. Wendy! Peter! George Hadley and his wife whirled and ran back to the door. Open the door! Cried George Hadley, trying the knob. Why, they've locked it from the outside. Peter! He beat at the door. Open up! He heard Peter's voice outside against the door. Don't let them switch off the nursery in the house, he was saying. Mr. and Mrs. George Hadley beat at the door. Now don't be ridiculous, children. It's time to go. Mr. McLean will be here in a minute and then they heard the sounds. The lions on 3 sides of them, in the yellow veldt grass, padding through the dry straw, rumbling and roaring in their throats. The lions. Mr. Hadley looked at his wife, and they turned and looked back at the beast, edging slowly forward, crouching, tails stiff. Mr. and Mrs. Hadley screamed, and suddenly they realized why those other screams had sounded familiar. Well, here I am, said David McLean in the nursery doorway. Oh, hello. He stared at the 2 children seated in the center of the open glade eating a little picnic lunch. Beyond them was the waterhole and the yellow veldland. Above was the hot sun. He began to perspire. Where are your father and mother? The children looked up and smiled. Oh, they'll be here directly. Good. We must get going. At a distance, Mr. McLean saw the lions fighting and clawing and then quieting down to feed in silence under the shady trees. He squinted at the lions with his hand to it, with his hand to his eyes. Now the lions were done feeding. They moved to the waterhole to drink. A shadow flickered over Mr. McLean's hot face. Many shadows flickered. The vultures were dropping down the blazing sky. A cup of tea? Asked Wendy in the silence. Well, well, well. If that isn't an interesting one. So how's everybody doing tonight? Well, I'm glad that you knew it right away. Alrighty then. Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, Ray Bradbury had this knack for predicting the future in very, very strange, accurate ways. Though I think it's funny that the whole house cost $30,000. Alrighty then. Well, we all survived the first story. Yes, that's the fictional part. Yep, you're right. Yes. Well, Jade, stick around. We're going to read some more. I have 3 more stories, in fact, all by Mr. Bradbury. Oh, yeah, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. But, so for those of you who are here for your first time, I am Undead Papa. My name is Jeremy. I go by Undead Papa, plenty of other, whatever. Just, don't call me late for dinner. But I do this on Wednesdays and now Fridays and Sunday nights. Sunday nights, for those of you that don't know, is my Sunday night bedtime stories where I read family-friendly stuff. We're currently reading Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. Wednesdays is going to be more for darker short stories. And Fridays is going to be for science fiction and pulp fiction type of stuff. So that's an added live. This Friday will be my first full Friday story time. We'll go from there. But if anybody's interested in what I do or supporting what I do offer subscriptions. I do have currently 5 wonderful people who are subscribed to me. It's only $2.99 a month. You get some special stickers, which I see Tessa just used. And you also get a sub-only space. You get shout-outs. I will follow you back. And you get to have a voice in where we take this journey of storytelling. I'd love to have you along with me. Whether you can subscribe or not, it doesn't matter to me. If you can, great. If you can't, that's fine too. I'm just happy to have you here. So let us... Yes, Jade, it is one of my favorite books. So good evening, Roxy. How are you? Welcome in. So technology promises comfort, convenience, ease, a life where machines take care of everything we no longer wish to do. But sometimes when we build a machine that can give us everything we want, it may also learn exactly what we deserve. Our next story comes away from futuristic nurseries into something much older, something mysterious, something sitting quietly on a shelf, waiting for someone to look a little closer. This next story is called The Jar. It was one of those things they keep in a jar in the tent of a sideshow on the outskirts of a little drowsy town. One of those pale things drifting in alcohol plasma, forever dreaming and circling with its peeled dead eyes staring out at you and never seeing you. It went with the whole noiselessness of late night, and only the crickets chirping, the frogs sobbing off in the moist swampland. One of those things in a big jar that makes your stomach jump as it does when you see a preserved arm in a laboratory vat. Charlie stared back at it for a long time. A long time, his big, raw hands hairy on the roofs of them clenching the rope that kept back curious people. He had paid his dime, and now he stared. It was getting late. The merry-go-round drowsed down to a lazy mechanical tinkle. Tent peggers back of the canvas smoked and cursed over a poker game. Lights switched out, putting a summer gloom over the carnival. People streamed homeward in cliques and queues. Somewhere, a radio flared up, then cut, leaving the Louisiana sky wide and silent with stars. There was nothing in the world for Charlie but that pale thing sealed in its universe of serum. Charlie's loose mouth hung open in a pink wheel, teeth showing. His eyes were puzzled, admiring, wondering. Someone walked in the shadows behind him, small beside Charlie's gaunt tallness. "Oh," said the shadow, coming into the light bulb glare. "You still here, bud?" "Yeah," said Charlie like a man in his sleep. The carny boss appreciated Charlie's curiosity. He nodded at his old acquaintance in the jar. "Everybody likes it. In a peculiar kind of way, I mean." Charlie rubbed his long jawbone. "You, ever consider selling it?" The carny boss's eyes dilated, then closed. He snorted. "No, it brings customers. They like seeing stuff like that, sure." Charlie made a disappointed, "Oh." "Well," considered the carny boss, "if a guy had money, maybe." "How much money?" "If a guy had," the carny boss estimated, counting fingers, watching Charlie as he tacked it out, one finger after another. "If a guy had 3, 4, say maybe 7 or 8... Charlie nodded with motion, expectantly, seeing the carny boss raised his total. "Maybe $10, or maybe 15. Charlie scowled, worried. The carny boss retreated. "Say a guy has $12. Charlie grinned. Why, he could buy that thing in that jar, concluded the carny boss. Funny thing, said Charlie. I got just $12 in my denims, and I've been reckoning how I looked up to it. I'd be back down at Wilder's how if I brung something like this set on my shelf over the table. The folks would sure look up to me then, I bet. Well, now listen here, said the carny boss. The sale was complete. With the jar put on the back seat of Charlie's wagon, the horse skittered his hoofs when he saw the jar and whinnied. The carny boss glanced up with an expression of almost relief. I was tired of seeing that damn thing around anyway. Don't thank me. Lately I've been thinking things about it, funny things, but hell, I'm a big-mouthed so-and-so. So long, farmer. Charlie drove off. The naked blue light bulbs withdrew like dying stars. The open, dark country night of Louisiana swept in around wagon and horse. There was just Charlie, the horse timing his gray hooves, and the crickets, and the jar behind the high seat. It sloshed back and forth, sloshed wet, and the cold gray thing drowsily slumped against the glass, looking out, but seeing nothing. Nothing. Charlie leaned back to pet the lid. Smelling of strange liquor, his hand returned, changed, and cold and trembling excited. Yes, sir, he thought to himself. Yes, sir. Slosh, slosh, slosh. I know it's not water, but it's close enough. In the hollow, numerous grass-green and blood-red lanterns tossed dusty light over men huddled, murmuring, spitting, sitting on general store property. They knew the creak bumble of Charlie's wagon and did not shift their raw, drab-haired skulls as he rocked to a halt. Their cigars were glowworms, their voices were frog mutterings in summer nights. Charlie leaned down eagerly. Hi, Clem. Hi, Milt. Oh, Charlie. Oh, Charlie, they murmured. The political conflict continued. Charlie cut it down the seam. I got something here. I got something you might want to see. Tom Carmody's eyes glinted, green in the lamplight from the general store porch. It seemed to Charlie that Tom Carmody was forever installed under porches in shadow, under trees in shadow, or if in a room, then in the farthest niche of shining his eyes out at you from the dark. You never knew what his face was doing, and his eyes were always funning you. And every time they looked at you, they laughed in a different way. You ain't got nothing we wants to see, baby doll. Charlie made a fist and looked at it. Something in the jar, he went on. Looks kind of like a brain, kind of like a pickled jellyfish, kind of like... Well, come see for yourself. Someone snicked a cigar into a fall of pink ash and ambled over to look. Charlie grandly elevated the jar lid, and in the uncertain lantern light the man's face changed. Hey now, what in the hell is this? It was the first thaw of the evening. Others shifted lazily upright, leaned forward. Gravity pulled them into walking. They made no effort except to put one shoe before the other to keep from collapsing upon their unusual faces. They circled the jar and contents. And Charlie, for the first time in his life, seized on some hidden strategy and crashed the glass lid shut. You want to see more? Drop round my house. It'll be there, he declared generously. Tom Carmody spat from out his porch airy. "Ha! Let me see that again," cried Gramps Medno. "Is it an octopus?" Charlie flapped the reins. The horse stumbled into action. "Come on around. You're welcome." "What'll your wife say?" "She'll kick the tar off our heels." But Charlie and Wagon were gone over the hill. The men stood, all of them, chewing their tongues, squinting up the road in the dark. Tom Carmody swore softly from the porch. Charlie climbed the steps of his shack and carried the jar to its throne in the living room, thinking that from now on this lean-to would be a palace with an emperor. That was the word, emperor. All cold and white and quiet, drifting in his private pool, raised, elevated upon a shelf over a ramshackle table. We running into some technical issues? Doesn't say that I'm dropping any frames or anything. Well, hello there over there on YouTube. I see that there are 5 of you watching. Welcome, welcome. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I will continue. The jar, as he watched, burnt off the cold mist that hung over this place on the rim of the swamp. "What you got there?" Thetty's thin soprano turned him from his awe. She stood in the bedroom door, glaring out, her thin body clothed in faded blue gingham, her hair drawn to a drab knot behind red ears. Her eyes were faded like the gingham. "Well," she repeated, "what is it?" "What's it look like to you, Thetty?" She took a thin step forward, making a slow, indolent pendulum of her hips, her eyes intent upon the jar, her lips drawn back to show feline milk teeth. The dead, pale thing hung in its serum. Thetty snapped a dull blue glance at Charlie, then back at the jar, once more at Charlie, then once more at the jar. Then she whirled quickly. It looks just like you, Charlie," she cried. The bedroom door slammed. The reverberation did not disturb the jar's contents, but Charlie stood there, longing after his wife, heart pounding frantically. Much later, when his heart slowed, he talked to the thing in the jar. "I work the bottom land to the butt bone every year, and she grabs the money and runs off down home visiting her folks 9 weeks at a stretch. I can't keep hold of her. Her and the men from the store, they make fun of me. I can't help it if I don't know a way to hold on to her. Damn, but I try." Philosophically, the contents of the jar gave no advice. "Charlie?" Someone stood in the front yard door. Charlie turned, startled, then broke out a grin. It was some of the men from the general store. Charlie, we thought, well, we came up to have a look at that stuff you got there in that jar." July passed warm, and it was August. For the first time in years, Charlie was happy as tall corn growing after a drought. It was gratifying of an evening to hear boots shushing through the tall grass, the sound of men spitting into the ditch prior to setting foot on the porch, the sound of heavy bodies creaking the boards, and the groan of the house as yet another shoulder leaned against its frame door and another voice said as a hairy wrist wiped a mouth clean, Can I come in?" With elaborate casualness, Charlie'd invite the arrivals in. There'd be chairs, soap boxes for all, or at least carpets to squat on. By the time crickets were itching their legs into a summertime humming, and frogs were throat swollen like ladies with goiters shouting in the great night, the room would be full to bursting with people from all the bottomlands. At first, nobody would say anything. The first half hour of such an evening, while people came in and got settled, was spent in carefully rolling cigarettes, putting tobacco neatly into the rut of brown paper, loading it, tamping it as they loaded and tamped and rolled their thoughts and fears and amazement for the evening. It gave them time to think. You could see their brains working behind their eyes as they fingered the cigarettes into smoking order. It was kind of a rude church gathering. They sat, squatted, leaned on plaster walls, and one by one, with reverent awe, they stared at the jar upon its shelf. They wouldn't stare sudden-like. No, they kind of did it slow and casual, as if they were glancing around the room, letting their eyes fumble over just any old object that happened into their consciousness. And, just by accident, of course, the focus of their wandering eyes would occur always at the same place. After a while, all eyes in the room would be fastened to it, like pins stuck in some incredible pincushion, and the only sound would be someone sucking a corncob, or the children's barefooted scurry on the porch planks outside. Maybe some woman's voice would come, "You kids, get away now, get!" And with a giggle like soft, quick water, the bare feet would rush off to scare the bullfrogs. Charlie would be up front, naturally, on his rocking chair, a plaid pillow under his lean rump, rocking slow, enjoying the fame and look-up-to-ness that came with keeping the jar. Charlie would be up front, naturally on his rocking... I read that already. Thetty, she'd be seen back of the room with the womenfolk in a bunch, all gray and quiet, abiding their men. Thetty looked like she was ripe for jealous screaming, but she said nothing, just watch men tromp into her living room and sit at the feet of Charlie, staring at this here holy grail-like thing, and her lips were set cold and hard, and she spoke not a civil word to anybody. After a period of proper silence, someone, maybe old Gramps Medno from Crick Road, would clear the phlegm from a deep cave somewhere inside himself, lean forward, blinking, wet his lips, maybe, and there'd be a curious tremble in his calloused fingers. This would cue everyone to get ready for the talking to come. Ears were primed, people settled like sows in the warm mud after a rain. Gramps looked a long while, measured his lips with a lizard tongue, then settled back and said, like always, in a high, thin old man's tenor, "Wonder what it is. Wonder if it's a he or a she or just a plain old it. Sometimes I wake up nights, twist in my corn matting, think about the jar settin' here in the long dark, think about it hanging in liquid, peaceful and pale like an animal oyster. Sometimes I wake Ma and we both think on it." While talking, Gramps moved his fingers in a quavering pantomime. Everybody watched his thick thumb weave and the other heavily nailed fingers undulate. "We lay there thinking, and we shivers. Maybe a hot night, trees sweatin', mosquitoes too hot to fly, but we shivers just the same, and turn over trying to sleep." Gramps lapsed back into silence as if his speech was enough from him. Let some other voice talk the wonder, awe, the strangeness. Juke Marmer from Willow Sump wiped sweat off his palms. Hold, please. Oh, come on. No. What just happened? Having technical difficulties here. My screens just went blank. Well, if you can hear me, I may have just run into some technical difficulties here. And I am not sure what's going on. Oh, shit. Shit.